Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the PodStation from Trophies on PSN. Joined today by my usual co-host Dante Zero and a
Ooh.
special guest today, Garcia Fever,
Yeah.
who's newly added to our staff on Trophies on PSN. So without further ado, let's get going. Site roundup. What can I say? We've just let go one of our programmers. Change had to happen. We're looking at hiring. We've got a specific person in mind. Hopefully he'll come aboard. He's actually a friend of the other programmer. Very, very skilled individual from everything I've heard. And if that doesn't work out, we'll certainly get someone in there very, very quickly and continue on with developing some of the add-ons. We're still having a little problem with the chat. I'm not sure exactly what we've got going on with that. We've had some changes lately that have come out from Java. For those of you that don't know, there were some updates recently with Java. At least I had them. I particularly use Firefox, so a lot of things are still working for me. Some other things are not working, but there are a few browsers that are troublesome. So if you're having any kind of issues specific to a browser, please let us know those. It's always helpful, and that way we can try and sort it. What can I say? But Java and those kind of programs are always a big pain in the butt because they differ from browser to browser. But just bear with us. And then from there, like I said, we have a new addition to the staff. Garcia Fever, why don't you tell us quickly, what you got going on, what you're going to be doing with us?
Hello everyone, Garcia Fever here. Just a bit recap about myself. As like most other gamers out there, I enjoy gaming and enjoy watching anime, enjoying doing mostly my own thing. I can be a lot of fun sometimes as well as being serious, but aside from that, I'm just a fun-loving guy. Like, if you have any problems or any issues, just let me know either on PS3 or PSN. And yeah.
So there you go. If you have any browser issues, having problems with the chats or the cards, no. See, be careful what you say.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yep. And just for those who don't know, Garcia is actually joining us on the news team. So he will be starting this week, I believe. We've got the schedule nailed down. So look out for his news stories. Get involved with the discussions as you do with all the other news team guys, including myself. And make him feel nice and easy coming in. And look forward to some of the projects we've got planned as well. So it's going to be good times.
Cool. PSN pick of the week. Dante, you're up.
Yep. This week is a freebie. Our favorite price. Capcom Arcade Cabinet. It's available now on PSN. You can download it for free. It's obviously published by Capcom. When you download the actual game itself, you get one free arcade game, which I believe is Black Dragon. And it's like the old school arcade games, basically. Capcom have decided to put all their old arcade games up for sale. So you download this Capcom Arcade Cabinet, you get a free game, but there are other games that you can buy that load into that game, if that makes sense. So they have like yearly packs, so you can buy like 1985 bundle, which includes 3 arcade games from 1985, and
like
then
Dig Dug and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and it's just going back through Capcom's basic arcade history, and there's some. What makes it such a great thing is not only are the optional games that you can increase how many you have, it's the feature set that makes it great, because some of them have multiplayer.
Always
some
good.
of them all of them have online leaderboards, which you can compete with your friends on. But here's the really cool thing: you can save your replays and upload them to YouTube.
Some of that social media stuff.
Yes. So, which is bizarre, really, because, as I say, we've talked about this on the PodStation before, where some PSN games don't seem to utilise that feature because the YouTube tools are built into every PS3 development kit, and yet people don't put the feature in to record your gameplay and upload it to YouTube. And obviously,
Cool.
you know, when you have something like this, which is dealing with basically the classics, the real old school type games, it's kind of nice to have that feature in there, because then it gets those games more coverage, and the chances are you'll probably see like more retrospectives on the games and stuff, you know, what
Trophy
they were like
help.
in 1985 and stuff. But yeah, it's also got trophies as well. You know, in that respect, it's quite a good thing, because there are additional trophies for each additional game that you buy in. But if you choose not to do that, you will still get trophies for just downloading the app and then playing the free game that's included with it.
Yeah.
Does that include Ghosts and Goblins?
I imagine, I believe that is actually one of the games that you can purchase and put into it, yes. But I'd need to double check that, because to be honest with you, there was that many of, I think in total at the moment they've got about 7 additional games that you can load into it.
I'm having flashbacks.
So there's like 7 additional games, plus you can also, there's bonus games as well, assuming that you meet certain requirements. So if you get like a trophy, for example, or something, you might get an unlocked bonus game. I'll be honest with you, I haven't delved too far into that. But yeah, I mean, the feature set of it is what makes it such a great thing. And as I say, it's our favourite price, which is free. So, and you know, if you want to take that one step further, and you know, you really are a fan of the old school, there's more for you to purchase if you want to. So, you know, it's the best of both worlds. And as I say, some of the other features are pretty cool, in terms of, with each game you get like, when you meet certain requirements, you actually get unlocked. So you get like box art images, in the art gallery you get wallpapers for your Capcom arcade cabinet. You know, it does things like Japanese logo and Japanese title compared to the West ones and stuff like that. You can unlock as you play the game as well. So there's plenty to keep people occupied with that game. So yeah, PSN
Cool.
pick of the week this week is Capcom arcade cabinet.
Awesome.
Nice.
Go download it.
Yeah, don't wait for the price to go down.
Yeah. Speaking of prices, we spoke last week about some of the sales that were going on around PSN, and we figured, you know, one thing we should do more of is we should cover these more when they crop up. Just before we come on air, I decided to have a quick look at the store and see some titles that might be of interest to people. There's 3 sales on at the moment in Europe, which is there's the usual price drop section, there's a Resident Evil sale, and there is the Expedition sale as well, which has got a bunch of games like Far Cry 3 and stuff like that. But there's also the nation's favourite sale as well. Now, these are continuing on till Wednesday. So obviously, if you do want to pick up a bargain, go check these out. But I'll give you a rundown of some of the titles that I've sort of looked at and what you can expect to be paying anyway. I had a look through the Resident Evil sale. They currently have Resident Evil 6 available for £17.99 on digital, as opposed to its normal retail price on the PSN store of £49.99. So that's a huge saving there. You can get Resident Evil Raccoon City for £7.99. You can get the Resident Evil Chronicles HD collection, which includes both the Umbrella Chronicles shooting games and the Dark Side Chronicles for £11.99. So you get 4 games for £11.99. That's an absolute bargain. But some of the other games that aren't Resident Evil related that are currently on sale as well, I checked out to see what sort of pricing you can expect to pick them up, and you know, some of the bargains. Amongst those was Borderlands 2 for £17.99, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 for £20, and you'll love this next one because it's a great bargain. The Prince of Persia HD Trilogy. So this will be 3 games, 3 platinums, £7.19p.
What?
Which is about $10.
Now, see, that's a nice price, but I'm a hater. I won't go there.
But yeah, I mean, I've got the Prince of Persia
So
trilogy.
what about the American store,
The American
Garcia?
store I haven't had a look at, but
Did
you
you look in the
guys...
North American store, Garcia?
I haven't checked out the American store
Oh,
yet. Sorry.
homework fail.
Man.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as I say, I can only refer to Europe myself, to be honest with you. But I mean, even if you're sort of American, I'd recommend, you know, creating a UK account and putting some funds on there, because as I say, that there's just some amazing bargains. And as I say, that's not even half of what I've put down on my list as notes to sort of cover. You know, there's games like Two Worlds 2 Game of the Year, 11 quid. Normally 30 quid, and you could buy both Record of Agarest games for 13 quid, both of them. You know, again, they both retail for about £25 each.
Cool,
and you get both of them for 13 quid. So if you are listening to this, do go check out the 4 sales. I don't even know why we've got like 4 sales, but go check on the four sales in the UK PSN. A majority of these discounts are only running to Wednesday this week, so Wednesday the 27th, I believe it is. So this is kind of your last opportunity to really sneak some bargains and do what I normally do, which is take advantage of them and then feel like I've stolen from Sony or something.
On another note, let's see, there's a new Walking Dead game out, and I just want to warn everybody that's getting some very, very bad reviews.
It's Activision. What did you expect?
Well, you know, we talked about this before when they were planning it. We're like, that's probably not going to, you know, translate well. And from everything I've heard, it didn't. And we know that the PSN, you know, pick your direction adventure kind of thing worked real well.
Yeah.
Everybody loved that. But this one, I guess, is probably like a 5.8, 5.9 on a 10 scale.
Ooh.
Is what everyone's saying.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, and to be honest with you, Activision obviously didn't reflect it in the price, because I think if you go try and buy the digital version of it on the
It's
UK
like
store at the moment, it's like 50 quid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but think of it from this way. You're saying it's $50. Here it's like £50, which is the equivalent to near
60.
enough 65, 70 bucks.
Yeah. Well, just warn everybody, stay away from that. It's supposedly, or at least look into a little bit more, make sure you're satisfied, because that one's supposed to be
Should we do a quick Walking Dead roundup? Because I was just going to say, it's funny you brought up Walking Dead, because there's actually 2 bits of Walking Dead news this week. The first one is that Walking Dead, the Telltale version, is actually coming to PS Vita.
Ooh, okay.
So if you've got if you're still on the fence about PS Vita, it just goes to show that, you know, developers are starting to find their footing and faith in the platform again. So yeah, hopefully it should be towards the end of this year, when not long before we get season 2 of the Telltale games. But yeah, Walking Dead on the Vita. And the second thing is, if again coming back to the bargains thing, if you haven't already picked up the Walking Dead Telltale games version, with the 5 episodes, you can buy the season pass on the UK store for £9 as opposed to 20.
Mm-hmm. And on the show, Rick Grimes and the governor are about to have it out.
Yeah, I still am I think I'm about three or 4 episodes behind now. I really need to catch up on that.
Yeah. Awesome show. Anyway.
People need to PM me and remind me that there's an episode.
I wanted to mention, too, speaking of PSN, I'm going to go out here on a little tangent. We know that PayPal had promised some functionality and everything with the PlayStation Store. And, you know, I just experienced that for the first time. And, you know, I kind of wanted to report what I found, so to speak, to kind of help everybody. First off, they still do not have it where you can add funds directly from your PlayStation. You have to go online on a computer onto the Sony site to add PayPal funds, which then takes you to PayPal. And a couple of things that I noticed in terms of not really working too well was it stated to me, despite my balance in my PayPal account, that it would take the money from my directly from my bank account. which is not the case. It's not the way it's supposed to work. It tended to, always say that it would, get kind of grab the balance and say, that you've got this, you want to use those funds, and then anything above that would take from your account or take from a credit card. So despite it saying that, it did take it out of the funds. But just to report that still that system's a little bit hazy, a little bit still not 100%, because, it's got a lot of problems with that. I was on the store on the PlayStation. It did not update my funds. I had to back completely out and come back in. You have selections of certain dollar amounts. You can't select an exact dollar amount, which is the other thing that I really love is when you have that balance remaining on your PSN account where you need like 25 cents or something to round it off because you've got taxes and all that other stuff in there, and it always works to your disadvantage because you're actually leaving funds with PlayStation until the next time you have add funds to make a purchase. But just generally, it's working. But I just wanted to let everyone know, at least in the U.S., that it's got a few problems still that you just got to watch out for.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I haven't tested that out in Europe yet because.
Well, did they add it in Europe yet? I know they were looking at it in the US.
Well, it came to Europe first, didn't it? So.
I wasn't aware of that.
We've had it.
I thought it was the other way around.
No, we've had PayPal functionality and the web browser version of the PSN store since November. We just chose not to report on it because we wanted to make sure that they actually got it working first before we sort of wrote a news article saying, go test it out. But yeah, I mean, as I say, I haven't tested it out, but I can kind of see the logic in some respects to sort of argue with what you're saying there, is that you could argue that it's annoying not having PayPal on the PSN store itself, but at the same time, you can put your own credit card details into the PSN store. The concept of having PayPal added as a payment method is for those that use the web browser store. So in that logic, you can kind of understand it, because if you're on a PC browsing the PSN store, obviously, you may not necessarily want to put your credit card details in, so then you obviously use PayPal instead. And so that logic fits with it. I don't think PayPal was ever meant to be an alternative method for paying for things on the PlayStation network itself, but it's handy to have if you say browsing on your PC.
Well, it just seems to me like it's got some things that they could do a lot better, even considering that it's on the PC. Like, for example, having you be able to pick your amounts and things like that. Why have it where it's got to be rounded to 5, 10, 25? If I even need $8 more or something like that, and I've got to do the 10 and pull out a little bit more that's going to sit there. I would just like to be able to round it off and keep a zero balance, do those kind of transactions, and then have it update right away. That's the other thing is like, okay, well, anytime you add a card number or anything like that, it updates immediately on the PlayStation Store versus having to back all the way out and come back in to then get your balance again.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, maybe because it's obviously there is
things
some
like that.
real-time linked, but if you're already in the PSN store, it's not going to update if you're already accessing it, because the new store design is kind of like a new web app as opposed to what it was before, where it was a dedicated store. Now it's kind of got all the internet linked in stuff because it's now running on HTML5 as well, which is one of the reasons.
Yeah, it seems a little faster.
Yeah. So I encourage people to stick with it though and keep testing it, and let us know how they get on.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that update out there to give everybody a little bit of a warning on how you use it. So don't freak out if the transaction doesn't show right away, and you have to leave the PSN store and come back in, and a few other little bugs, but it worked. Got my money in there. I might buy some Far Cry 3. I'm debating.
The next test we really need to do is to see if, say, for example, somebody in Europe can add funds to their American account via PayPal. That's the next test we need to do.
Yeah, will it translate?
Yeah, will it translate?
Conversion.
That's right, the conversion.
Yeah.
Well, PayPal should do that automatically anyway. To be honest with you, it's just a question of whether or not it works with the PSN way of doing it. Because I'll be honest with you, if you try and buy PSN credit through numerous different websites to purchase stuff off your American account, you don't half get conned with some of the additional increases in price, and it's not a fair price given the exchange rate. So it'd be interesting to see if, because as I say, I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me if it works, or I might just have to test it myself to see if it actually works. Because if it does, great, then it means I can start buying stuff off the American store. Although I'd prefer not to.
Now, do you guys have taxes and stuff like that to come out in your digital transactions?
No, all our prices include tax and VAT anyway. So. And interestingly enough, I believe, because this is one of the things I thought about when I set up my US account, which is if you set it up so that your PSN account has I think it's California.
Rhode Island.
No,
Rhode Island.
Because mine's California and I don't have to pay tax on it.
Rhode Island works as well, I've heard.
Yeah.
Little birdie told me.
But wait, meaning you don't have to pay taxes when you buy digital content?
Right. Instead of, like, if you put $15 in, something's $14.99, you'll have a penny left instead of, having to get the $20 in there and have it being $15.64 and having some odd amount of money left over, which annoys the hell out of me because it just sits in there. It's you might as well charge me $20 because by the time I use that again. There's a couple states here that do not have, the sales tax does not get added to it. And it's kind of weird because it's digital content as well, which is another thing. There's different laws, from different countries based on if you're actually getting a product in your hands versus digital content. But regardless, if you use Rhode Island and apparently California, can't confirm that one. But
I think that's for mine as well, because in the PSN store, I don't charge taxes on when I buy stuff digitally as well. So I usually have the 1 penny here or two leftover change.
Yeah.
See here in the UK, all the prices quoted on the store include tax and VAT anyway.
It must be nice.
It's just the way that we do things. So it's not like you get a receipt that says, you won't have. Say for example, you go into a store and you pick something up and it says $5, and then you get to the end and you pay for it, and it's like $5 plus you got to give us another $2 sales tax or whatever. Our price tickets here will say it's $7 straight outright, or £7 rather, because obviously we don't trade in dollars. But just to give people the gist of it. So all our pricing from everything, whether it be digital content, physical content, petrol, smokes, food, it's all included within the pricing structure itself. So we don't have to sit there and work it out.
Yeah.
Now talking about prices and all that, I understand that here in Canada, the government has decided to remove the penny, meaning that usually any cash transactions would either round it up to the 0 to 5 or to the 5. Does that happen as well in the States, or is it just me here?
No, the U.S. are still using pennies. There's been some talk of that, but I was aware of the Canadian thing, and I don't know. I mean, that was kind of a crazy announcement because you're really ignoring. I don't know. There's a lot of transactions that you can imagine if they're just really small transactions that could be an issue.
We should say thank you to the Canadians, because thanks to you guys now, everybody else is having that discussion. And to be honest with you, I'd rather them just not change it. It is annoying when you get a penny change, but take it out of circulation and so on like that.
Well, I guess the big gist is
like the government
they need to make so many of them that it's very costly for governments to actually make a penny because of what's involved.
Not only that, just think about all the businesses that need to change their pricing and all that. And think about it. This is only for a cash transaction. In regards to the credit or the debit transaction, that still has not been affected yet. So just think about all the amount of time it will take to change everything.
That's what I mean. Exactly. That's what I was talking about. Is those transactions are different, and if you're rounding down all the time, and somebody has a setup where the system is 3, 2 cents or something like that, and they round it down automatically, and they lose 2 cents every transaction. That doesn't sound like a lot, but then okay, across thousands and thousands of transactions, maybe even, digitally millions, you could see that could be like, well, we've got to change our prices now, or this is going to be a problem.
So why not just keep the system as it is?
Well, when you're making change with someone digitally, you can't cash out on it. There's no pennies to give you.
Yeah, but put it this way, for example, if you buy something on the PSN store that's like £19.98 or something, and you've got 2p sat on there, right, just not doing anything, in some respects that's still in Sony's account, so Sony will make interest of that, and that helps towards them running a business, So, in the grand scheme of things, I like the system as it is. And plus also, what about all those people that, save pennies in the jars and stuff? What happens in like 2 years' time when you've accumulated, I don't know, say $100 worth of pennies, you take it into the bank and the bank say, well, we can't accept that because
they're worthless.
pennies are not in circulation anymore, and
I've got
haven't been for the last 2 years.
10-gallon jug of pennies here.
Well,
they're worthless.
So.
We're going to round all those down.
You're taking a jar of pennies and come out with nothing.
I tell you what, we get easily distracted, don't we? Speaking of video games, so our topic this week, EA, Electronic Arts. Now, Dante, there's some interesting news in this lately that probably want to set the context for why we'd be talking about EA. And of course, probably anyone that's involved in gaming probably knows EA is, very large company, very involved with digital content. The passes, games like Battlefield, Need for Speed, a lot of sports games, Madden, Mass Effect, FIFA, Dragon Age, Dead Space.
Let me set the context for this discussion then. Basically, this week,
Let's hear it.
John Riccitiello,
CEO.
which if most people don't know, was the CEO of EA, or at least he is for another 11 days. He will be stepping down at the end of March. He's been in place since 2007. In that time, obviously, a lot has changed gaming-wise, certainly with EA. Me and Garcia were talking about this yesterday, actually, and we were saying EA themselves, as it stands at the moment as a company, and this should give you some idea. Back in the days of like PS1, PS2 games, they were well known for things like sports franchise and stuff, things like that. But EA actually now publish across all platforms, be it mobile, tablet, PC, on Steam. Uplay, their own service, Origin, PSN, XBLA, Wii U, PSP, PSV. The list could just go on.
Yeah, I forgot about Origin. Yeah.
Put out more games every year than Ubisoft, Activision, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo combined. Which goes to show how big EA are, even though they're the second largest publisher in the world. Now, for the CEO to be stepping down because they're not going to make fiscal profits for next year is interesting, because in the time that John Riccitiello has actually been at EA, so many things have gone on, not just from a game standpoint where we've seen new IPs and franchises emerge and then be milked to death, but there's obviously the emergence of things like microtransactions, online passes, as we say, DLC packs, and stuff. So it's interesting to kind of explore some of those things and decide what, because I don't know, personally speaking, I think EA often gets found to be the most hated games company in the world.
Yeah, didn't they achieved that title a few years back, if I'm not mistaken?
It was last year.
Was it last year? I was thinking like 2010, 2011, something like that.
No, most hated company in North America last year.
Yeah.
And have been for numerous things. And I think that's a little bit unfair. I won't profess to say that I'm a fan of John Riccitiello, but if you look at some of the things that EA have done, certainly since he came in, you there's no cut and dry argument for or against. Do you see what I mean? It all falls within the grey areas to whether or not they're positive or not.
Yeah, well, I think most people focus on the whole topic of, the online passes, and that whether you support it or don't, or actually understand it or not, it's got negative connotations. So immediately when you say, okay, well, EA is responsible largely for online passes coming to us, people go boo, and then you have things like, with Mass Effect and the big uproar with the endings and stuff, and then you have like boo, people don't really like tout their gaming company and say, oh, this is the best gaming company, and so when it comes time for votes for like the worst company, obviously you've got a lot of attention in these areas where people are just going to go up. EA's bad, EA's bad, EA's bad, and then there's all these votes that just come,
Yeah. So let's try and address this with certain things that we've seen change, certainly during Riccatello's reign as EA. So the first thing we should really say is obviously about online passes, and I'm curious to get both your guys' personal opinions as to how you feel about online passes before I chuck my 2 penneth worth in. So, I mean, how do you feel about online passes, KD? Do you think, since the Project $10 commenced, do you think
here I go with it. First off, I'm okay with the idea of online passes. What I'm not okay with is the idea that it would kill. It's specifically targeted at the used game market, and how that can hurt the used game market. I'm one of those people that originally I kept all my games. So if you had included in the price, an online pass, then there wouldn't be any discussion whatsoever. It's not anything that would really affect me or that I would feel would be a big deal. Now I'm scraping by with money and trying to, make my dollars count as much as possible. I realized one day I've got all these games that were sitting on the shelf from years ago that I never played. Why not use that money, even if it's a little bit, to help purchase a new purchase that I want to play all the time? So with that mindset, I start selling my games, whether it's on eBay or to friends or whatnot, and you want to expect maximum value out of it. Now, when a game has a $10 pass included into it, what you'll see is that EA is really trying to grab the online aspect of it. They're trying to say, well, this, you're paying separately for the inclusion of online activities or multiplayer activities, and that's all fine and great, but at the same time we're talking about games that often, they're killing servers for. Or, you have $10 for an online pass, and now the value of that game is going to be actually maybe $20 less, and it doesn't really equate. And in my eyes, it's almost like an extra greedy way to make some money and try to eliminate used games where if you're applying it in the same context as anything else, a CD, if I buy a CD with songs on it and I sell it to Garcia Fever, I own those songs and I own that disc and I have a right to sell it to Garcia Fever. It's not like a listening fee is being associated with it. It's not like that game's going to lose, or that song's going to lose value because it's not going to be playable in a few years because they're shutting a server down. It's just a lot of things like that it turned me off to the whole idea of it. Is it really fair? I don't know. I don't really think so, because I really look at a lot of games. They should build them in to be long term. In other words, if someone else is on there and hosting, then there's no need for online servers. If
peer-to-peer system, yeah.
Yeah, those kind of things. Like you build it for the long term, build it for it to have that value, not have the value drop significantly. Because it's like a new car. You take a new car, you drive it off the lot, and not immediately, if you went to sell it, it's worth about 40% of what it was an hour before. It's the same thing when you take the saran wrap off of a game, and I think trying to kill that used market when it's so very, very...
So would you say in terms of your perception, then you'd be looking at it from a personal seller's point of view?
Yes, but I think what they need to do if they're going to do online passes, do it for a period of time after the game comes out. But don't extend it on. Don't extend it forever. Don't make it where you're shutting down servers left and right, after an unreasonable amount of time. Don't make it don't try to eat into that used video game market, because you're hurting people that are buying the game with the expectation that they can also sell it later and get some value out of it. In other words, when I pay $60 for a game, in my mind, I'm not looking at it like I'm paying $60 for a game. I may be paying $20 because I'll sell it for $40. And if you kill the value and I'm paying $60 for the game, but then I'm going to be able to sell it, only for $15 in the same amount of time frame, what's still relatively new, then I'm paying more for the game as initial purchaser. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So where do you stand on online passes then, Garcia?
I'm trying to wrap my head around the online pass. Like, does that mean that you buy the game and then there's an additional cost for paying the online pass to play on, like, not exclusively but certain stuff online to get more sense of an excitement with other players around the world?
It tends to vary, you see.
Yeah.
Take, for example, like Dragon Age has an online pass, but it has no multiplayer, online multiplayer, and the idea is that the online pass, in, say, a case of an RPG, would guarantee you extra content for buying it new. And I'll explain a little bit more why I can understand why they've done that with, say, Dragon Age when I come to throw my two penneth worth in. But yeah, but whereas with, say, like a FIFA game, obviously the online pass then does grant you access to online multiplayer, and the same with Battlefield. But you again, even if you look at it for the perspective of it granting you access to online, you still get additional extras for purchasing the game new. And it is worth pointing out that online passes don't actually increase the value of the retail price of a new game. So, the online passes can vary in terms of what they actually do from genre to genre. Have you had much experience with the online passes at all?
It's like, personally, I kind of don't approve of it, mostly because I just want to get the game and play it and have fun with it. Like, why do I want to continue putting more money into the game?
Time,
even
with codes. Yeah.
Exactly. And then with all the other additional content, unless I am willing to use it, of course. But most of it is okay, there's a new weapon. Go use it to play online. Wait, 1 sec. We'll even add you. You'll have to pay online first to play with the rest of the other players, on top of giving you that free gun that you also need to pay for in the beginning. Like, why would I want to do that? Can I just play the game myself, have fun without getting more stuff? I'll most likely buy that stuff along. Like, I'll either find it from other people or find it from other monster from another player or something like that.
That brings up another point too, Dante, and I'll add this in there to confuse the topic even more. But with not knowing what's going to come with the game, like having announcements for that kind of stuff. The other thing is like DLC. Not knowing like what Garcia's bringing up with maybe special weapons come out later and things. That changes the dynamic of the game, the same as these passes can, and they're often incorporated together. And that's no different than when you buy a game. I also almost feel that, it'd be nice if publishers would say, there's going to be DLC and it'll be within 6 months, or, because if a game comes out and then a year later DLC's added, or it changes the game significantly because they add some kind of special power or ability suits, or you can only buy them from one, you go to GameStop and you can get all these special passes and extra content at this place, but you can't go to another place and buy it, or it's a different pack altogether. Those kind of things are just generally, it all, in my mind, fits in the same vein, and it's almost unfair to do to gamers because you confuse it. You make it like, we talked about earlier about on the last podcast about knowing about trophies first. Well, now it's almost like you got to go and research, is there an online pass, and what kind of extra content can I get? Where do I got to go buy this from? And you shouldn't do that to your core fans, to make the game so damn complicated that I got to go research and find out, what items are included and what types of passes are included.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, because
go on.
Sorry, because the one game that got me talking about that is the one I'm thinking of. Like, there's two games, sorry, that I'm thinking of. One is Borderlands 2. Great game with like, and then now I heard that they're revealing a new character as a DLC and maybe increase the level capacity unless they already did that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the second game is Final Fantasy 13 2. Everyone has negative and positive opinions about that. I like the game personally because it was something different for me. It was, again, I've been one of those players that have never experienced a Final Fantasy franchise except for playing Final Fantasy 10, 10-2, and 13, and 13-2. So to me, this was one of the good things. But now, when you have the DLC where, oh, you get to fight Lightning again, but there's the possibility that you may have her into your party, and that if not, then you're just going to have to fight her again and again. Like, why do I want to do that? Can I just fight her once and that's it?
Yeah. Well, let me throw my two penneth worth in where I am online passes. I'm for them. I really am. I can see the sense in them. And people are probably screaming at the computer going, why? And there's an interesting thing here, which is to do with DRM, digital rights management. Now, on PC, it's a huge moot point because a lot of single-player games require you to have an internet connection to play them because of the DRM things, whereas the online pass system is a much more friendlier side of things. And let's be honest, publishers and developers are out to make money. That's just the nature of their business. And so they want people to buy the games new. They have to have a certain amount of people buy the games new because they have to make money to be able to reinvest that back in their development studios and keep making more games. And so that revenue's got to come from somewhere. But at the same time, they offset that cost by saying, well, if you're going to buy the game new, yes, there is an online pass. However, you will get some extra content, some free stuff, basically, that you wouldn't normally get if you just buy the game second hand. And I think that, they make attractive packages out of that. I really do. There's not too many games that I've bought new with online passes where I thought I've been screwed by the online pass system here. With the Dragon Age thing, I got some extra DLC with that, and it added to my experience, and I was happy with that. And I intended to buy the game new, so I bought it new, and I've been as a customer, I've been rewarded for buying that game new. However, I also see the flip side of it with the second-hand market, and in some respect, that's not EA's fault. That's because of the industry that's born out of, a necessity as a result of people wanting to trade their games in. So what you have to then bear in mind is, where some of the anger goes towards EA in this particular case is that if you're on a budget, if you're on a tight budget, you can't afford to buy your games new, but you should still have access to be able to purchase the games. The anger comes from not being able to save as much money as you possibly can on buying it. So, for example, games. Let's just pick an example here. Game offer you, say, £20 trade-in on Tomb Raider. They will then put that second-hand game back on the shelf for £30, right? All of that money is profit that the game store gets. EA sees none of that. And so it's hard for EA to then track their sales and where they can make extra money to keep investing in server management, extra content, extra development stuff. Because, in an ideal world, as much as people probably think, this is the case, I'm sure EA would like to provide a lot more services than they currently do free of charge.
Well, isn't there a life cycle, you would say, though? I mean, if a game gets sold back months later, where do you say that they don't have a right to just keep, expecting that people are going to buy new? It's the same with DLC, all of a sudden they come out with DLC from a game that's been out for years and say, okay, well, you can do this and you can play it in a totally different vein. Skyrim's going to come out, you can play as a dragon, there's new DLC and blah, blah, blah. Then you've got people that are like, well, I'm going to buy the whole game again, new or used. You've got a whole new influx of people, but then you also have that responsibility to those initial people that purchased it and held on to it. Well, now they've got to go purchase this other stuff that just kind of sideswiped them.
But in regards to that though, won't most people think about waiting for the complete edition like they did with Resident Evil 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people that have done the exact same thing with Fallout, and that's fair enough. And to be honest with you, in some respects, that shows intelligence on the consumer's part, because they've waited for the Game of the Year edition, and publishers like EA are kind enough, in some respect, to re-release those with all the DLC, because I'm sure they would make more money if people just purchased the game new and then, DLC packs. But we're sort of digressing a little bit there, because what you've got to, and here's the thing that you've got to make the distinction between: online passes don't equal DLC. DLC is a whole different topic compared to online passes in some respect, because DLC is not something that's exclusive to EA. EA will put DLC out, and we'll cover that shortly, but so do Bethesda, so do Sony, so do Microsoft, and so on and so on.
Well,
and so on.
they have cases where they combine them now.
Yeah, but that culture is completely different from the...
It is, but they're combining them now. You realize that. They're combining them now as well.
No,
and you're talking about often different aspects of the way you can... extras that you'll get, depending on what kind of pass you buy.
Yeah, but
it's DLC in the sense that you're getting an advantage in some way, or you got to make a choice before you've even played the game.
I'm trying to make the distinction between is that you cannot essentially rage at online passes, because if a game has an online pass, that's fair enough as for the reasons that I've mentioned. But where I then see the grey territory, the question mark, if you like, is the season pass on top of the game that comes with its online pass. Do you see what I mean? I'm kind of like, well, you've paid for your game, you've got it new, you've got some extra items, the DLC is always optional. If you want to buy it, you can to extend your purchase. It's not necessary, but at least you've got some DLC and you've got rewarded for buying the game new. If you buy it second hand, and this is the example I was trying to make, which was if a game shop is selling the game £20 second hand, as opposed to £40 new, and you take it home, you then have to pay £8 for the online pass, so your total purchase then becomes £28. You're still saving £12 more. You're still saving £12 on what it would cost to buy the game new, and everybody wins. The publisher gets some money, the game shop gets some money. But I think where some of the anger comes from is that people don't, as I say, people want to save as much money as they can, so they don't understand. They get annoyed at the fact that they buy the game for £20 from somewhere like Game or GameStop. They then have to go home, spend another £8, and
that's
so
because
that's into how much money they've saved. And
that's because that game would have sold for less.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Those prices on a used game aren't going to come down just because there's an online pass. It's not going to come down that dollar amount. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying that they're taking that from the consumer's pocket.
Yeah, but that's not EA that's doing that in some respect. Yes, EA is part of the problem because you have to buy the online pass. But then surely part of the problem then lies with the game stores themselves, because as I say, in some respects, they don't care if a game has an online pass or not. They're still going to set.
So you're paying twice.
Second hand.
You're paying game and you're paying EA.
Yeah, but it's a question of making sure who the people who should get the money do get the money, and as I said, for numerous reasons, the people that should be getting the money are the companies like EA and the developers, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that reinvest.
Now, what about if I pay for my online connectivity to pay for an online server or something like that? Let's say I pay my $10 up front for the server. Now I sell my disc. I'm not playing that online server anymore. If I sell my disc to Garcia Fever, isn't that a part of that sale? Isn't a part of that sale to be able to transfer my ability to play online on the server to Garcia Fever? Isn't that also part of the cost, or shouldn't that be part of the cost up front so it's not? In other words, charge me $12 for online connectivity instead of $10, and then allow me to sell it at whatever price I want to sell it to someone else, and they can take up my online connectivity and play.
But then
Yeah,
again,
no, I think that could be part of the solution in some respects. I don't think
Let
they've
Garcia,
thought too far ahead.
let Garcia answer to that. He
sorry,
started to
man.
say something.
But then again, that's if I want to pay for the online. Like, what if I just want to get the game and just want to play it for fun, for just myself, and not pay for it, not like pay for the online? Then why should like I don't mind accepting money, but what would I use it for? Like, I don't want to accept that though.
Mhm.
So why not just get the game myself and give you the online pass or
Then you should
the
be able
extra
to.
money
What
then.
you're saying there too makes sense. You should be able to buy it for less if you don't want to play the online part. You should be able. If it normally goes for $60, you should say, well, I don't want that. $10 worth of online, so I should be able to go just buy the game for $50, not buy the pass.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but you can. I say you can, but I'm
You can,
referring
not
to
in
the
every
second-
case. In some cases,
I'm
you
referring
can.
to the second-hand market in some respects. So, as you say, coming back to the example I was giving with a game store, is if you go and buy the game second-hand and it requires an online pass, that's then optional. If you don't care, you don't have to buy it. If you don't want the online or the extra DLC, you don't have to buy
Yeah,
the
but can you
online
go into your
pass.
game shop and buy something for less, saying I don't want the online pass in it? Take it out, open it up, take the online pass out, or give me a version
Okay.
without the online pass for $50
Yeah, but-
instead of the full version with 60.
Okay, but that's not EA's fault in some respects. That's down to the game shop. They're going to sell. Let's pick a game out of the top of our head. They're going to sell Battlefield 3 at £20, whether it has an online pass or not. So if you went into a GameStop and said, I don't want the online pass, they're still going to sell it to you as if you had bought it with the online pass.
So to me, technically, it's like saying they're almost forcing you to buy the online pass, even though you don't want it. Then
No, they are forcing you to buy it. You have to buy it with the initial purchase. You have to buy it with it. I don't know of any cases where they sell them separately yet. They talked about that.
No, they do make the online passes available when a game launches, and as I say, this isn't something that...
Right, but they mostly come in the game. You're paying full price. They come in the game, you open the game, and then there's a little code in there. You have to take some of your time to enter that so you can play online.
But you also question the value side of things as well.
Well, that's what this is all about for me, is value. It's all about value for me. The same with digital content. Digitally delivered to you, you don't even have a disc. How is it not cheaper?
Yeah, but look at it from this point of view then. If you buy a new game, you don't want the online thing, there is nothing to say that you cannot then take that online passcode and then sell it on eBay if you want to.
Yeah.
But
Extra work.
that's all your options. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying the online... Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the online pass system is perfect. It solves a lot of issues in regards to DRM stuff, which is something as console owners we really, really don't want to get into that field of discussion because, when you sort of talk of console DRM, we as an industry would shrink. We would end up going backwards if we started implementing that kind of thing, DRM related stuff into online passes. Do plug a gap in that respect. There are pros and cons to it. The system isn't perfect, and I agree there are some holes that need to be plugged in terms of being able to transfer your online passes, and that's something that people can look at. And I do wonder if EA under a new CEO will look at something along those lines. Although in fairness, EA did start the whole Project $10 online pass system, if it wasn't so effective at solving more problems than it creates, it wouldn't be in place. And it's been that effective that we've now seen a knock-on effect with other developers and publishers. So it is worth noting that even if you disagree with the online pass, there is options available to you in terms of how you can still make money out of them should you want to, and how it affects you. But at the same time, I think EA unfairly gets a lot of hate because at the end of the day there are so many other publishers and developers doing that as well now. And I wonder if when we look back at Riccatello's legacy, if that's going to be the one thing that he's remembered for, really instigating that system as such, and nickel and diming it a little bit. But I don't see personally I don't see the problems with online passes other than it can affect how much money you save. I don't think it necessarily negates the value of your product.
It just to me from the outside appears like a money grab.
Yeah.
It appears like an extra money grab because it wasn't around before, and now it's like, well, we need to do this and take every cent we can out of second trades, and
Yeah.
yeah,
But in fairness, I mean, you could, as you say, it wasn't around before, but then, before we didn't have such a, diverse online system, and also we didn't have expensive networking technology. We didn't have, games costing near enough $60 to $70 million to make for this current generation on average. So, you know, games before cost a lot less, so it's a small sacrifice to pay in some respect for the greater good, if you see what I mean. But it's not directly impacting everybody. I know people who will probably have very strong opinions on this, listening back to it during the week, and will make those opinions known. But in fairness, as I say, if I buy a game new and I get an online pass included in the price of admission, they close the servers 2 years later. That's fair enough because, in some respects, they make it clear, if you buy a game with an instruction manual, they say the minimum requirements that, they can shut the servers within 30 days as long as they notify you. And obviously, from EA's part, in some respect, they do guarantee that the servers tend to, with most of their games, the servers will be up for a minimum of 2 years. But you're right, in some respect, there are some better systems that you could look at.
And that's
stuff, but that's
develop them so that they're connected peer to peer. And the other thing is, like, as a trophy hunter, I think we all know that all upsets all of us to know that there's a game that you've got a time limit on, and you either get it or you don't, or trophies are done, and
yeah. But but as I say, pushing this discussion on from online passes a little bit more, my concern would be more with season passes. But here's where EA can get some unfairness, and I think this criticism is fair with the microtransaction systems, because we all know there's different business models for games development. There's free to pay, there's play to pay, there's pay to win. There's all kinds of different models. What I don't like with EA in some respects is, I can live with the online pass system. I'm not too keen on the season pass DLC systems, but where I draw the line at is microtransactions for full retail games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to kill that's more pushing towards killing the retail stores as well.
Yeah, and I
think about that. We had the whole brick and mortar discussion before, but if anything's going to drive that home, it's all the, and EA is big on that. They're big on those digital transactions, and that's another thing we should probably talk about is...
Well, it's funny you mention that because, Rick Tello was keen with microtransactions. I get the funny feeling with all the negativity around the Dead Space saga, with regards to that, I think we probably won't see microtransactions filter through him. But, in fairness, while there was all this debate going on around Dead Space 3 containing microtransactions, a lot of people that played Dead Space didn't necessarily buy the transactions. They didn't see it affect their game. They still enjoyed it. And meanwhile, in the background, Activision were currently prepping microtransactions for Call of Duty, which is now live. So, I think it's a very dangerous field, is microtransactions, and that's one that I would have liked to, I can understand EA doing that on a PC scale, or their free-to-play models, because microtransactions do help.
Yeah, free-to-play, that fits with that, doesn't it?
Yeah. But if you're buying a game for $60 or 40 quid, then you get your online pass in it, so it's fine. You go away, you play the game. Then, a month later, you then have to pay 25 quid for the season pass of DLC, which is always optional. And then you've got these microtransactions.
Buy a better gun, different suit.
Yeah.
It's just another means of grabbing money. That's it. That's all.
Yeah, it's money grab.
Yeah,
well,
I think.
Yeah, let's talk about these, like the digital download. Is there a duty for these companies to charge less, or to get it where we're saving us money if there's not a disc involved and there's not?
Well, EA have really pioneered digital transactions. I mean, we all know Steam exists.
Yeah.
And it has done for a while. But it is worth noting that even back in 2003, 2004, EA already had a digital delivery system for
Origin.
games anyway. No, this was pre-Origin.
Okay.
But obviously they now have the Origin competing with Steam and so on. But,
Yeah,
from
they had, what was that,
perspectives,
was something box or something, wasn't it?
Orange box? No, I'm thinking of something else. Sorry,
No,
I
it
was
was
gonna say
some kind of
orange
something
box.
box. It was, yeah, I know what
Yeah,
I seem to recall it briefly.
But they have pioneered they have pioneered the digital future going forward with making games readily available on stuff. And
Yeah, but it seems to me like if you're eliminating the packaging process, and especially you get to the point where it's eliminated completely, that should be that's probably a large chunk of the cost if you think about doing up a disc and the art and all that other stuff. Now I'm sure people would be disappointed in losing that, but at the same time, if we're able to get what's normally a $60 game for $40 and it's a digital download, or we're playing it without downloading anything, it seems to me that there would be some cost there that would be reflected in onto the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, I've often quibbled about the price of some things on the PSN store that boggle my brain. I mean, how you can charge an extra £10 to £20 because it's digital, as opposed to a
charge
physical
extra
retail.
for digital. That's the other thing. You
It's
experience that a
ridiculous,
lot in Europe, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's something I would necessarily acclaim with EA, because here's the interesting thing, is that every time we complain about it to Sony via the European PlayStation blog, we always get different responses. So we'll get a response which says, well, it's up to the publisher to set the price. But then obviously we then go back to EA and say, well, why are you doing this? And then EA will say, well, it's up to Sony. And so you get this back and forth, and you never really know who's setting the price and who isn't.
Somebody's lying.
And they just don't want to tell you the truth because they know the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Yeah, they send back a message. It's a money grab. We're both taking some out of it. We're charging you extra. Deal with it.
But I think from EA's perspective, if they are setting the prices of some of the newer games, then I would question the ethics of that, as you say, because if you're not getting a box product and so on, but to go more in depth on it, we'd kind of need some insider knowledge on that, really, as to exactly what goes on with that. Because
I'm going to guess, though, that they probably have a standard price set, and then they probably say, okay, we're going to have to do this digital content delivery, and that's going to cost us this extra division or setup, and that's going to be another $10 or something. And I'm thinking that's probably where it all stems from. They probably don't care to look into it to say, well, this is a savings if we're doing the digital content. How much of a savings is that? Can we put that off on the person and make it either the exact same price or less? Yeah. And I think it's probably that they're lazy in the sense that, why should we go check this and see if we can save money?
But in fairness to EA, I will say this, is that, they're guilty as much as other publishers are of putting new releases out at stupidly extraordinary prices. That being said, EA are more adaptable than a majority of other publishers in that respect. So you will find that quite a lot of the time, certainly with PSN sales, as we covered some of those at the beginning of the show, EA are more warming than other publishers to actually discount their products and make them ready available. The only other publisher that I can think of that does offer discounts on their digital content on a regular basis for console side of things is Square Enix. They'll, if Sony approach them and say, hey, we'd like to include the latest Need for Speed in a sale we want to do, it's not often you see EA or hear of EA turning around and saying no. They'll be like, yeah, by all means, we'll drop it down to X price, and it's great. And we certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen a lot of EA digital content discounted, so much so that now you can even pick up Medal of Honor Warfighter for like £17 brand new digitally. And in that respect, EA are the pioneers in some respect of digital delivery and making sure their games and their content are available digitally. yes, there is some issue with the pricing, but at the same time, they are also leading the benchmark in terms of, making sure that they discount those products regularly as well.
Well, let me ask you this: in terms of like how something can be out for a while, and we talk about prices. If they're kind of nuking some of that second sale transactions, they're putting a hurting on that by having the online passes and whatnot. Where is their responsibility to have like some kind of reasonable scale to taper stuff down? Because I'm also finding that you can go into the PlayStation Store, and for someone that's not not seeing the things that they want in those sales, not taking advantage of the PlayStation Plus, there's a lot of stuff that can be out for a very long time, and it is still full price.
Yeah,
Far Cry. I just looked at Far
you're
Cry. It's still full price. What's the deal with that? How can it be still be $60?
Yeah, but what I would say to that is that, I don't know how it is for Sony America, for example, but I know in Europe they readily take feedback of things that people want to see in sales, and quite often, certainly in Europe, believe it or not, EA games are usually the most requested for sale.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're one of those people that doesn't want the PlayStation Plus with the extra discounts and so on, I would always point you in the direction of your regional Sony blog. And whenever a Plus update or a store update comes, make sure you request those titles. Tell Sony that you want to see a discount on Far Cry 3, for example, in America, and if enough people do it, I'm sure that Sony will work something out with Ubisoft. But this is what I'm saying. In some respects, EA are more friendly in that approach.
Maybe they're just requested so much because their prices are staying so high.
I feel that the more you pester them, the more they will either A, try to like leave you alone because you keep pestering them and you will not leave them alone, or B, they might give you a discount but not on the exact game that you want, probably for something else in which nobody or not nobody but most people may not tend to care about.
I don't know. We've had this discussion before, Dante. I feel I've done a lot of things with publishers online with giving my feedback, and I can't think of a positive result ever. The many times I've tried it over many years, and I don't know the answer.
I'll give you a recent example then, because I don't know if it's a regional thing or what, but I know that next month's PlayStation Plus, for example, update for Europe, we get Akami HD and Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward on the PS Vita. Now these were actually titles that I have seen constantly requested since December to be included in PlayStation Plus. 4 months later they are.
Really? For Zero Escape?
Yeah. I've even requested that for PlayStation Plus, and it's been included in next month's PlayStation Plus update, which just goes to show that Sony's PSN store team do take that feedback seriously here.
At least in Europe.
I'm not so much sure in America, but as I was saying, if you look at the range of publishers that publish it on the store, EA are, in some respects, and I maintain this regardless of how much you hate them, EA do make content readily available at discount rates, which is more than any other publisher that I've seen on the PSN store. And you've got to bear in mind, I've had a PS3 since launch day. I've seen the PSN change over the years. And, I've bought digital content from pretty much since Warhawk launched. Warhawk was my first major digital purchase that I made on a PSN store. So I've watched this extremely closely with it. And even back then, EA was still discounting their digital products.
You just made me realize something too, Dante. I'll actually point something out. Speaking of PSN and the changes since the first, launch of the PS3, we were talking about the microtransactions earlier. If you really think about it, Home actually kind of pioneered that. Sony really pioneered that, didn't they? The microtransactions?
Yeah.
All the stuff with the clothes and all that?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, that doesn't get as much hate. So
It
I
doesn't
don't
get hate, even though it's
exactly.
in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty crazy to
And I
be
mean,
buying digital clothes for a couple of dollars.
yeah. And if you want to do a comparison, if you
I
want to
mean,
do
am
a
I right,
comparison,
Garcia Fever? I mean, have you ever been on PlayStation Home?
I've been on there once, and it was like a lot of
Buy a gold suit for
it,
$2.99 or something like that. You're like,
next thing you
what?
know, next thing you know, you just see like another pimp strolling down the street with his cane. Hey y'all. Hey.
Yeah, with his gold top hat and cane and
Yeah.
tuxedo.
but I mean, if you want to do a comparison, you could blame the home economy really in some respects to EA's development with The Sims. You know, The Sims on PC is definitely something that microtransactions work for. So you
Yeah,
know,
I forgot about The
maybe see, and this is what I'm saying. I mean, you sort of you can hate EA as much as you want, but looking back, even just like the last decade, and not including John Riccitiello's reign as CEO, there's so much that EA have been responsible for, and yet, admittedly, it isn't all great. But can we honestly say that if they hadn't done those things, that we would be enjoying such a great generation? Because those kinds of things aren't bringing this generation of gaming down as a whole, because life still goes on within the industry, and it challenges the other publishers to be just as pioneering.
You're gonna ask that poll question. I think you're gonna find more people dislike EA's overall than are positive about it. I think you're on the minority on this one, buddy. I'm not playing devil's advocate, but I'm going to tell you that I think I've heard a lot of people specifically tell me that EA is the devil, and it seems to ring true that you're going to find a good chunk of people are very hostile towards EA's policies overall.
So just to sort of notch it up then in that respect, then we should probably look at some of the positive things that have come out as a result of, Riccitiello's reign as EA CEO, and some of the positive things that have. Well, from my perspective, one of the biggest positive things that I've seen come out of EA is really the FIFA franchise more than anything. That, back in PS2 days, FIFA, Pro Evolution Soccer were the two warring factions when it came to football, or for American soccer.
Football. Madden?
Yeah, no, the real football.
Yeah, Madden.
Anyway, for the last 3 or 4 years, FIFA has just been unrivaled, and so much so that it's even seeing huge success in America now. And gaining a lot more fans because they really focused on producing the best possible football game, to the point of now where it's reduced a game like Pro Evolution Soccer to being lucky if it can rack up 1 million sales a year or whenever one comes out. And that's a great positive, because when you look at the FIFA package, and yes, it has the online pass, I don't know too many people who get upset with the yearly releases of FIFA, and the same with Madden as well. Madden's done great things over the last 3 or 4 years in this generation, where it's just become, the benchmark of excellence.
I think that gets a little bit more of a free pass, to use a pun, because of teams changing every year. It gets a little bit more leeway than most other games too, though. With sports, I mean, your players are going to change teams. There's going to be a different quarterback, blah blah blah.
Okay, yeah, in the sense of that though, yeah, there's always going to be different players in different teams, but what more can you do to a sports game? Like, sure, you can try and make it as lifelike as possible, as if you're watching a real soccer game, a real sports game or whatever, but what more can you do to that?
It's hard to explain without going over several hours of time that we've got.
Now wait, does this then mean that a more reasonable plan would be to have yearly DLC where your teams change?
No, because what you've got to bear in mind is that certainly with the FIFA and Madden games, the game engine is completely overhauled from year to year, and they really do. And it's not just a graphical thing as well. Yes, there are the statistics, but then there are more services and more features added in each year. And speaking from a football fan's perspective, the FIFA games get, 1 year it may be they focus on improving the passing to the best possible thing. The following year it'll be build your player from scratch, and make the best possible player, and it incorporates all the tactics and stuff. As I say, it's hard to go too in depth without going way over the time that we have allotted. But even though they are yearly releases, they are like having brand new games. And so, in that respect, FIFA and Madden have become great mainstays. And, I would argue, in some respect, why Activision can't produce a fantastic Call of Duty every year on a yearly basis, but EA can produce fantastic Maddens and FIFAs every year that, regularly score, above 90 on Metacritic, because they are just fantastic games regardless of which region you live in. And it's not just the FIFA games that we should also look at from a positive side, because forgetting the online passes and the microtransactions for a minute, we've seen some great franchises come as a result over Riccatello's reign, but we've also seen some great new IPs and stuff. Everything from Dragon Age wasn't around when Riccatello started, and now it is, and people would argue, yes, the second one wasn't great, but we've got a regular Western RPG franchise now as a result of it. Yes, there is the Mass Effect ending debate, which I don't think's an EA issue, because obviously EA published the game, and although they own BioWare, I would say that's more down to poor guidance from BioWare's managing creative people than it is to do with EA publishing it. But still, Mass Effect is a great series which we wouldn't have had otherwise. The SSX reboot that was done last year was a fantastic game. Battlefield finally came to consoles under Riccatello's reign. Yes, we had Battlefield Bad Company, but would we have seen Battlefield 3 and now Battlefield 4 hit consoles otherwise? Because that is a huge positive thing that EA have done over the years. As I say, I'd argue the case that while there are arguments to be had about DLC and online passes about certainly around a game like Battlefield 3, we're lucky we've even got the game on consoles. And so in that respect, that's a positive thing.
A positive for those who may look at it that way. It's usually, think about it this way: you can lead a horse to a pond of water, but you cannot make it drink.
Dante's too positive. He's too positive about it.
So proud.
We need to have a protest against EA and get all online passes and done.
I don't know. I think
they need to not do this stuff like Fight Night where they have an impossible trophy to get. We can't have this stuff. We can't as gamers.
Yeah, but at the same time,
we need to riot and revolt.
I think EA will be the first to admit that they're not perfect. They've made mistakes, but as gamers, can we honestly say, certainly the way that EA have developed over the last 10 years and looking forward, can we honestly say that if EA went bankrupt tomorrow, for example, would we be happy about it? Because personally, I wouldn't.
Yeah, but this always comes down to discussion about money, and it's like anything when they're sucking every single penny out. There also becomes a point where it's like, they're not exactly failing. You're talking about multi-billion-dollar company. I mean, you can't really say, well, if they didn't have the online passes and they deserve to get this back into their money, as a publisher, they deserve that, part of the second transaction. Well, all the other people out there that are not following that lead, all the majority of companies not doing that are
Yeah,
still
but see,
successful,
I would
still
I would
making money,
argue, I would
still producing
argue that
games.
I would argue that it's a minority of companies that are not doing that, not majority, because I think, as I say, EA instigated it, and yes, they'd rightly get, criticism in that respect, but, there are a lot of other publishers and developers, a vast majority of them, that are now doing the same
Now doing
thing. And, there's obviously something in it from a business perspective, and, this is the key thing that we need to remember, is that we are gamers, yes, we love to play games and so on, so we're only going to think about the games that are in front of us, essentially. But, at the end of the day, put yourself in Riccatello's shoes. You've got to try and run the business, and, in some respect, from EA's point of view, they're the only company that really been challenging Activision, and, they have done with some great success so far.
I don't know if I'm in his shoes. If I'm in his shoes, I should be getting the games for free anyway as CEO of the company. So this is it's a non-issue. I'm playing Battlefield, everything. I'm getting the DLC stuff all for free. That's just the way it should be.
But I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is put yourself in his shoes, in the fact that you can point to the mistakes that have been made, and EA are usually the first ones to say we've made a mistake. I mean, look at the recent SimCity thing. They've admitted that they were pretty stupid over the whole fiasco, and they'll learn from it, and they'll go on.
Well, what do you say? What do you say about the whole Mass Effect debacle?
Well, I think that's more down to BioWare than it is EA.
Okay.
I don't think, if you've got a real...
You think EA should have accepted any responsibility in that? Because...
I think they probably should have. I think they,
Or do you think it's like BioWare hate is what led to... I mean, they were wrongfully targeting EA.
Yeah, I think you should have been, if you really had an issue with it that badly, you should have been targeting BioWare more than EA.
Okay.
I think that's fair, because, and EA would be the first one to say that their developers are completely accountable. The developers that are under the EA umbrella are accountable for their own work. EA can manage all the developers and be the publisher and put the product out on the shelf for those development studios, but essentially, EA, yes, does have to rubber stamp, the Q&A aspect of it, make sure that they're still putting out a quality product with the EA brand
publishers always step up, and like I've seen, like Activision's a perfect example. They step up and take the brunt of things with Call of Duty, and it's the same setup there, publisher versus developer. So I don't know.
But EA usually are pretty open about those sorts of things. If a game gets criticism for such and such, they will always address it and say, we could have done better with it. And I certainly think the Mass Effect's a case in point with that. EA would say, yes, we could have done better with it, and maybe we should have gauged our job as a publisher for that game should have been to focus group test it a bit more than perhaps they probably did. But at the same time, BioWare felt that was the direction they wanted to take it in. EA gave them that freedom to take the game in that direction, so the responsibility in that respect would lie with BioWare.
Okay. One last opinion from both of you.
Okay.
So, EA being the most hated company, what was the most direct cause? The online passes? Some of the failures with trophies and shutting down servers, or Mass Effect ending? Which one played the biggest? Which one was the role in getting them the most hated?
Do you want to go, Garcia? I'll let you go with it.
Okay.
Let's hear it, Garcia. What's your take on it?
Well, first,
because they're a successful company now. They've been making billions, so they're not failing their stakeholders in that sense. So
one, I haven't played any of the Mass Effect series, and I'm ashamed of myself as a gamer that I haven't gotten excited for that, or that hasn't been one of my main interests. So I'll ignore that. The online server stuff, I'll forget about that because again, I haven't been much of a sports person,
Okay.
and I've never been affected myself by the online shutdown. So as far as I know, it might be the first option. Was it the
Online passes.
yes, the online passes.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'll chip in with mine, which is I don't think it's any of those reasons at all.
Really?
I think it's the misunderstanding of EA as a company as a whole. And that's everything from online passes downwards. And I think EA need to do a better job of communicating that across with whoever comes in and steps into the shoes. I think it's important that, when EA appoint a CEO, soon enough, they appoint a CEO who's a gamer first and foremost and a businessman. Because there's plenty of people out there within the talent pool that can manage a company like EA, but also still play games. And I think that's where some of the hatred comes in that respect, because Riccatello is not known for being a gamer. And so
Really? I
it's
thought he was
harder.
an avid gamer.
No, and so it's harder for him to relate to some of the issues that gamers have with their products.
What is there anyone in the draw pile now? Do they have their eyes on anyone, or?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Kevin Butler.
I imagine they've probably got some candidates. I think someone like I don't know if he'd probably get the nod for it because he's doing a lot of other stuff at the moment after having left Microsoft's Lionhead Studios. But I think certainly someone in the same sort of mould as, say, Peter Moore, for example, of Lionhead Studios. I think someone along that kind of caliber who understands the development process, understands, in some respect what gamers want, but it's not just enough to understand, it's also you have to relate to that and then apply it to a business thing. And, he's done pretty well with Lionhead in respect with the Fable series. He didn't get everything right. Again, he'll be the first to admit that he made mistakes, but, at least people were able to accept them more because they saw him as one of them. They saw him as a gamer who understood it and understood that, he was able to say to gamers, it's because of this reason, time constraints and stuff, and people could genuinely tell he was being honest. And I think the problem with EA, as I say, is they haven't had a CEO for 5 years over the course of a lot of these changes where the CEO's been able to relate to the gamers on a more personal level and say, well, yeah, I totally agree with you, that sucked as a gamer. I'm going to have a word with him about fixing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for some reason, my understanding was that he was a gamer. I don't know where I picked that up from. But okay.
If you're regardless of what position you are in the company, the main thing that you have to do is become a gamer and test your own product. If you cannot even do that, then why even bother staying in the position?
Yeah, and I think EA need to stop with the trash talking crap as well. This whole Battlefield 3 is going to kick the crap out of Call of Duty. Nobody cares. What we care about is that we get a quality product for our money. And so I'd rather listen to EA telling me about how great Battlefield 3 is going to be, but I'd rather not have EA tell me how much more great Battlefield 3 is going to be than Call of Duty, because I don't care about that. I care
there's
about
so many games. There's not any games out there I look to that compete head to head with another title. There's really not. I mean, it's so silly. I mean, even if you have 2 or 3 in one particular genre, it's almost laughable to say, "Oh, we're better than so and so," and just make a better game. I know what you're saying there.
I think EA just need to be focused on producing the quality because as I say, we can argue about the online transactions, we can argue about microtransactions, we can even say John Riccatello in some respect for the last 5 years has been pretty useless at communicating with their core consumers, but at the same time you can't argue that EA have put some quality products out, and I think they need to shift the focus on continuing to put quality products out and taking away some of the things that make people want to resent them, while being able to communicate openly and have someone at the top who's able to relate to the consumers as well. Because the gaming industry in some respects is a lot more how do I put it? Is a lot more touchy-feely than say other retail consumer industries. If you buy a terrible T-shirt at a shop, it'll only ever go between the shopkeeper and the customer. In our field of interest and I'm not going to say expertise, but our field of interest in hobbyists and enthusiasts, we have a much more direct line of communication, and EA need to be aware.
Well, that's because we're the same people that have, well, for the most part, not me in particular, but we're the ones that have our finger on the Twitter, Facebook button.
Exactly.
Probably than most other industries, if you think about it.
Yep.
We're the tech guys that get the word out there. At least, that was my point earlier about having companies listen to you. It'd be nice if they, if I felt they actually listened in those contexts.
Yeah. And I think, EA, as I say, can probably look back over Riccatello's reign and say they honestly haven't done that, and they probably, whoever comes in at the top job will probably take that on board and, have to become aware of that and pretty fast and hit the ground running because, in some respects, EA have got a lot of damage control to do.
Yeah. Okay. You going to put your name in the ring?
No.
Garcia, how about you? CEO, EA.
I was at first I was thinking about nominating that African American kid. I forget what his name is.
Marcus.
Step the game
Marcus.
up. It would have been great as the continuing person that does the promotional videos.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. There's a lot to be said about how that's changed. We've talked till we're blue in the face about Sony's advertising. That clearly needs to change.
But I don't know, just thinking about it, I mean, I just thought of somebody that I really wouldn't want to see at the top of EA, and that's Bobby Kotick.
Well, they've purchased so many companies. They've purchased so many companies. I'm sure there's a CEO of a purchased company that's also probably...
Yeah, I mean, and
2 or 3 of them that are probably decent picks.
About positive things. I mean, if you look at some of EA's acquisitions and rebranding, I mean, they've picked up companies like BioWare, Playfish Games. They've developed their EA Sports brand.
What was that, Pogo or whatever?
Sorry?
Pogo?
Yeah, something like that.
There's a whole bunch of stuff like that I can remember.
They've invested across the board.
They buy companies up, don't they?
Yeah, and they're not even ones that, you could argue that some of the better known ones like BioWare, BioWare have benefited as a result of being under a big publisher, but to be honest with you, I'd rather prefer BioWare under someone like EA than Activision. Because could you imagine BioWare under Activision?
Oh my gosh.
Mass Effects, and I wouldn't even want to think of how much more the Star Wars MMO could be like proper nickeled and dimed and ruined. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think BioWare have done fine under EA. The guys that were running it obviously had to leave, and I don't think that was an EA thing. I think that was more of a, we've done this for so long, we want to change our careers. And that's fair enough. But I mean, as I say, EA, if they went away tomorrow, whatever, the stock market crashed, or they went bankrupt for whatever reason, I think as much as we all hate them for numerous different reasons, and I'm not saying some of those reasons are invalid, some of them may be misunderstood, but at the same time, if EA go away, as I said at the beginning of the show, think how many games and franchises would just disappear off all platforms.
Sports games lovers would definitely be hurt.
Yeah, I think mobile users would be hurt because you wouldn't get any more support for games like Simpsons Tap Out. You've got the racing fans with Need for Speed. Think about PC and console players with Battlefield.
Sims, yeah.
Sims, there's all these EA franchises that are fantastic, even though there are hot topics around them. If they disappear tomorrow, we'd all be worse off as gamers. And I genuinely mean that, because there would be nobody else to compete with Activision Blizzard, and let's be honest, the industry needs that.
Okay.
Because Ubisoft are not quite there yet. They're getting there. They're not quite there.
So, EA, most hated company. What was it was it in the U.S. or was it in the world?
In the US.
U.S. Okay, fair
North
enough.
America.
So what's let's before we head on out, what is your favorite company? What's your favorite gaming company, Dante?
I have quite a lot.
You can only pick one. Come on now, don't do that. You're so
I
middle
have-
of the road. Pick one.
I know there's so many to choose from, but I've got to say, my certain personal favourite over the last couple of years has probably, as a publisher and developer, has probably been Ubisoft. The potential in terms of what Ubisoft are doing and the investment that Ubisoft are, shoving into the industry is crazy, and they have a lot of interesting new IPs as well as being able to build on their existing IPs, and they've got quite a nice backlog to pick from, and certainly some of the most anticipated games for me personally this year are Ubisoft games in the likes of Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed turned me off, but the Watch Dogs looks really good, and of course I'm about to Far Cry is theirs too, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give that a shot. I'll let you guys know. Garcia Fever is going to help me get a platinum in that. Didn't know you signed up for that?
For
now you know. Helping me get a platinum in Far Cry. Far Cry 3.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I can see that. It's a pretty good company.
Yeah,
Garcia.
I don't see any negatives around them these days either.
What's Garcia's?
I'm more of the Japanese type thing. So like right now, my favorite company would be Square Enix.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me. I would have thought you would have gone with someone like NIS.
And NIS like that. NIS, Tecmo Coma. Yeah, along those lines too. Like the Gus.
Well, don't be doing a Dante thing. You can pick one.
Yeah, Square Enix for now.
Yeah. Cool.
It's not a bad choice. I've got to admit, since they acquired Eidos, they have certainly improved. They just need to really get Final Fantasy back to being Final Fantasy, and I think Square Enix will be, again, another publisher to watch. They've gone from the highs to. I don't think Square Enix could have got any lower than they did when they first released Final Fantasy 13. So now I think it's upwards trajectory for Square Enix, especially with all the games that they're helping Eidos push out. So, yeah, it's a good choice.
But then again, though, I haven't played the previous Final Fantasy series, so I don't know whether those ones, like, I know everyone will practically say, oh, Final Fantasy 7 was, like, one of the best games out there, but then again, I have not been brought up into that style. Yeah. I've only played 10, 10-2, 13, 13-2. If I were to right now, if I were to go back into play it, I'd probably be interested, but I wouldn't put the time in right now into the previous genres, into previous games.
If you like the newer Final Fantasies, I would say from a personal perspective, I would say, because you've got a Vita as well, haven't you? So I would say go pick up Final Fantasy 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Digitally for your Vita, and you'll see where some of the complaints come about the new Final Fantasy games. What about you, KD? Who's your favourite publisher? And please don't say Activision. Don't say Activision Blizzard, otherwise I'll have to shoot you.
I would never say that. I would never say Activision. And you're speaking to someone that's played a lot of Call of Duty. Boy, have I been disappointed with Activision. Their responses to me, the problems. I have some personal. If there's any company I'm really angry at, it probably definitely be Activision. But no, I think I have a lot of love for Bethesda, Naughty Dog. Particularly Bethesda. I think I've played a lot of Bethesda games. As a publisher, I enjoy their games. Always have.
Naughty Dog are technically Sony, and I'm surprised none
Sony
of us actually. I was surprised none of us actually mentioned Sony as our favourite publisher, because I would say that is.
That's a choice for people that like playing a lot of the indie, PSN kind of stuff and everything.
No, I'd say big budget titles. I mean, you look at Infamous 2,
Sony's got their hand in
Killzone?
everything, though. You just look at them as being like, I mean, don't they? I mean, have you guys actually ever really looked at what Sony is about? I mean, they are in everything.
Yeah, but they are still a publisher, much like they are EA.
Yeah, I mean, they're a publisher, but they take over like all aspects of entertainment, from movies. They own a movie studio to stereos to TVs to just like banks, and they're just everywhere. And
but is that
Sony's just intertwined with everything. You can't really look at them as like their own.
Yeah, but I was going to say, is that any reason not to pick them as a favourite publisher? Because that just goes to show that if they've got their fingers in so many pies and they can still be picked as a favourite publisher, they're obviously doing great things that appeal to consumers.
Because, I mean, can't you look at it technically they're a publisher of everything that's on the PlayStation Store? Because the PlayStation Store is theirs, So.
No, they're only a publisher if their name's in the credits.
Oh, okay. They work with Naughty Dog, but it's like anything else. You have the Havoc stuff where you have like engines and stuff from companies. You have, so when in the modern day video game, it's usually made by, some publisher will stick their name on it, and then some major developer will stick their name on it. But you actually look into it, and it's like 5 to 10 smaller studios. And there's no telling what the breakdown of work is.
I'm just going to come in and say, dude, just pick a publisher, Sony or Bethesda.
But I'll say Bethesda. I'll say Bethesda. I don't know. I think I'm a fan of the open world type, which they seem to gravitate and grab those and publish those titles. And
I'm surprised at that. I honestly hate Bethesda more than I hate EA. So.
I know everybody's talking about loads and load screens and like
yeah. 6 years in and they can't even make a game that works properly on a PS3. So if there's a developer stroke publisher you want to hate, ZeniMax and Bethesda are them, not EA. At least, yes, you may have to pay for an online pass, but at least when you pay $60 for a game, at least you know it's going to work.
Yeah, well, I don't have that many problems. I don't know. Maybe it's just me personally. My lockups are few and far between. Now, I'll admit Fallout 3, I literally got rid of that and waited for the Game of the Year edition with all the DLC, which actually worked very smoothly for me. I only had a couple problems.
Do you not remember that joke we had when we did the awards PodStation and we were laughing because Dishonored won an award and it was the only Bethesda published game that's worked without any problems on PS3, and the funny thing about it is that it was published by Bethesda, not made by Bethesda.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. It just surprises me that you've picked Bethesda.
Now they're getting away from that game engine they were using, right?
No.
Yes, I think they were. They were updating it.
No, the Fallout engine is still very much at the heart of everything that Bethesda develops, which is why it's quite nice when you get a game like Dishonored, which wasn't built on the Fallout engine. It was built by, I can't remember the developers now. Arcane Studios, they had their own development engine for it, and it showed because, as I say, when it released, it actually worked.
All right, damn it. So if the engine wasn't locking up, the game overall itself, you'd be very impressed with their games, right?
Well, don't get me wrong. I love
me up here, Garcia.
You can't expect everything to go perfectly. There has to be some flaws with every design.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
not really.
I don't disagree with that, but I mean, come on. Though there's having flaws in design where it freezes on the odd occasion, and then there's just not being able to play the game. Because it just drops to 1 frame per second or something like that. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I do like Bethesda games. I do like the games that Bethesda put out. I just hate them because they're broken.
Yeah.
But have you tested to see whether it fits the actual game disc itself? If so, then why not just replace it with another copy of it?
It happens to too many people to me.
It's a well-known issue that it's a problem with the graphics engine.
They load up too much too fast, and then when you're crossing kind of the borders between areas, it can have lockups.
It's to do with objects and resource management in the background graphics. for some reason they haven't been able to utilize the PS3 RAM and architecture properly, so that it doesn't load up everything you've ever come across in the game. Whereas on the Xbox 360 versions of Bethesda games, they tend to minimize it so it only it caps off at a maximum amount of objects, and then it'll rewrite over them. Whereas on the PS3, it doesn't do that for some reason. That's
So the
purely
PS4 Bethesda will be absolutely awesome. It'll move to being
Yeah.
your favorite, both of your favorites.
Yeah, I've got no doubt that if Bethesda release a broken game on PS4, they should just close down, because they've got no excuse. The PS4 is built on PC architecture; they can't get lazy with it again. So
I'll offer them a couple $100 for all their operations.
hell, I
I'll
will
fix
work and go and test it for them. I will tell them straight up it doesn't work.
But
Okie dokie. Well, anything to close it off?
No, I was just going to say, I just wanted to end the whole EA related show on this note. With everything that we've discussed, has your opinion of EA changed?
Nah.
Garcia?
no, at the moment. No. If I wanted to get more in depth with the topic, I would have made more research, but my decision has not changed.
Yeah, love them, hate them. I think probably. This is the thing that always gets me is very few people actually refuse to buy. Yeah, they can say they're as mad as they want to be, and then they'll still buy oh, FIFA's awesome. I hate this online pass stuff. I'm never going to get another EA game until the next FIFA comes out.
I hate EA. Dragon Age was rubbish, rah rah rah. But that new FIFA's looking good.
Yeah. So it's like anything else. Game companies have their issues, but at the same time, you're always going to have your titles that you like, and you're going to have your things that are acceptable. So,
yeah,
I don't
For
know.
speed.
Yeah, Need for Speed people, there's people that just love that, and
Well,
even if you're not a
Criteria-
sports person, there's still some good games from Electronic Arts.
Yeah. So I would challenge people as a result of this show to actually just think about why exactly it is you hate EA, and is there a little bit more to behind it than just going, well, they've got online passes, so I'm going to hate them. Do think about the whole bigger picture than just beyond the online pass thing, because there's more to it than we could cover in a 2-hour show. So
Trying to think, at Stargate, if I'm not mistaken, Stargate's a true EA hater.
yeah,
Interesting to see what he has to say.
rage.
Rage!
And also, don't hate me because I don't hate EA.
You're off his Christmas card list.
Yeah. If you hate me because I like EA, you're off the Christmas card list.
Cool. Anything to follow up, Garcia?
In regards to the news, the news
Final
team,
thoughts. News team, any of that. Welcome to the staff again. Anything you can think of?
it's hard because
Are you looking at kicking off some? You got any big stories coming up or anything that you're going to kick off that we should look forward to?
well, I know I have one story that I would like to try and get people back in, not back in stock, but have people get this game widely spread out more. The Zero
teaser
Escape,
for us.
which is Last Reward.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm intrigued now. I want to know what that game is. You're going to have to tell me when we go live.
Teaser.
Oh yeah, can't wait.
Okay.
And then there's also another article that I'm probably going to be making. I won't say anything yet, but I hope to make it as big as Zero Escape.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think IDP for Life still looking for somebody. Dante still looking for a podcast
Yep.
partner.
Still looking for co-hosts. So
I think I'm going
if
to probably
you're
do a couple
interested-
shows with him until he finds something.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in board with that as well. So
There you go. Maybe
but
Garcia will as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are still looking for one more member of the news team staff as well. So do keep sending in applications.
Cool.
My final thoughts. Thanks again to everyone for accepting me into the news team, and I look forward to working with everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah, end it, buddy.
All right, until next week, thank you both for your views today. And we look forward to the poll, whatever Dante's going to come up with, see what kind of EA hate we can pull out of everyone. Should be fun.
Nah, I'm not going to do a poll. I'm just going to ask for people's
Just ask opinions. See, he's not even brave enough to do a poll.
He's going to become like Diablo, just summon the depths of
EA
hell.
called,
And
no poll.
Yeah, I think if there's a poll, I think we'll go into meltdown soon.
Yeah, nothing brings people out like hate, does it? It's like you get something that pisses people off, and they will respond by the masses, and they'll take it out on you. And
yeah. So just share
Such
your
is
comments
life.
when we do the recap later in the week.
Alrighty, folks. Thank you for joining us. You have a great day, and we'll catch you next week on Trophies on PSN's PodStation.